Alright, so basically a video going through the answers with some explanations for the 4.0 to 4.1 quiz review, like kind of a sample quiz. The first handful of questions here talk about finding the greatest common factor. Well, then you know, basically it's the greatest common factor of 8 and 12 is 4, okay, which you can just maybe do in your head, or if you want to do a factor tree, which I'm kind of skipping over. The factor tree part of this is just the bottom line is that 8 ends up as 2 to the third power, and then after a factor tree, you know, and there's usually more than one different way to go about making your factor tree, but the bottom line is it always ends up, for 12, it always ends up as like 2 to the second power times 3 to the first power. So what am I getting at here? Basically that if you can't figure out that the GCF of 8 and 12 in your head is just 4, you can do, well, what's the lowest power on the 2's? 2 squared, right? And then what's the lowest power on the 3's? You got like no 3 at all compared with 3 to the first power. Which one's smaller? No 3 at all is smaller. So the GCF would just be like 2 to the second power, which of course is 4. And then you can just do the x's and the y's. You should just do it like that, where it's like, what's the smaller power? X to the first or x to the second? X to the first. And then the smaller power with the y's is y squared. So that's what you should have got for number 1. Same sort of approach or explanation for number 2. The final answer just ends up being like 5x to the third, y to the second. The x to the thirds, that was a tie. So, I mean, which one's smaller? It's a tie. And then if you can't do that in your head, then you can do a couple factor trees and compare the 2's and the 5's the same way you can compare the x's and y's. For number 3, there's the final answer. Special emphasis here on, I guess, first of all, the numbers. You know, what's the GCF of 5 and 8? Essentially, it's 1. If you go about from like this approach, 2 to the, this one has a 2 to the third. This one has no 2 at all. So what goes in the GCF? No 2 at all. This one has a 5 to the first. This one over here has no 5 at all. Which one's smaller and which one goes in the GCF? No 5 at all. So you see how we have like no 2 at all and no 5 at all? Again, essentially, the GCF is 1, which you don't really have to write. Like, it's understood there's a 1 out in front as like a coefficient. And then another special emphasis on the z's. This one over here has z to the first. This one over here has no z at all. So what goes in the GCF? No z at all. Still GCF, so just 3. This one has an x. This one has no x at all. So remember, with GCF, the smaller power always goes into the overall GCF. And then in number 5, it starts to switch to LCM, least common multiple, where now it's about, you know, well, what else can I say? Multiples. And this is where you now go with the larger power for each base, whether it's like the x's, the y's, or the 3's and the 5's, you know. So again, just to reiterate something from earlier, you know, maybe you can come up with 15 in your head, like what's the least common multiple of 5 and 15, or, you know, kind of like with a little help from your calculator to figure out that the least common multiple of 15 and 5 just ends up being 15. Or you can do this factor tree method where you end up getting this for 15, and just that for 5, and then just go with like the larger power. You know, the larger power from the 3's was 3 to the first, and it's for the 5's is a tie. So you could say 15 is like 3 to the first times 5 to the first. So there's number 6. And then here's number 7. Again, what's bigger? Z to the third or no Z at all? Z to the third's bigger. Remember, for LCM, you're going with what's bigger, the bigger power. Okay? And then the rest of this, I believe, is about 4.1, section 4.1 with slope. So you first want to like identify nice points for counting your rise and your run. So here's 3 nice points. You just got to pick 2 of these 3. So any 2 of these 3, you know, let's say we use these 2, then you would be going, remember, it's rise over run, not the other way around. So rise would be like down 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's down 4, and then right 1, 2, 3. So that's -4 because it's down over a positive 3. So the overall answer is -4 thirds. Same with number 9. Like, looks like there's 3 nice points for counting. Pick any 2 of these. So like maybe this one and this one. And so remember, the rise would now be up 1. So that's +1. And then to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So +1/4. Really quick, if you would have chosen, for example, this point and this point, you would have had like 2/8, but that does reduce to 1/4. Flat out, this line is vertical. I mean, if you want to actually go about plotting a couple points, be my guest, like that point and that point, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. But when you do rise over run, you're dividing by 0. And so the overall slope every time, as long as the line is vertical, is no slope or undefined slope. Similar for number 11. Again, I assume you're just kind of like checking your answers, and you're only looking at this video after attempting. So 2/3. And then likewise with vertical, but now this is horizontal. So I mean, you can just remember that it's always 0. Or if you want to go through the motions of like a couple points and then going, oh, my rise is 0 and my run is 4, but 0 divided by 4 is going to be 0. So down 1 over, oh, whoa, this is wrong. Wow, I apologize. Catching this in live time. I must have rushed through making this key. But this should be, apologies. The rise is down 2, and then the run is 1. So this would have been -2 over a +1, which just leads to a final answer of -2. Let's see if anyone catches that in class for bonus points. Then the last 2 or 3 problems here involves throwing these coordinates into the formula, as long as you remember that it goes x, y, and then in the other point, x, y. And so like we're probably going to call this x1, y1, then x2, y2. And if you plug all that in properly, you get 2/2 or 1. 7 minus, say it's 7 minus 5 up top, and then on the bottom it's 5 minus 3. The y's subtracted, and on the bottom the x's subtracted. Pretty much the same thing here. 9 minus 3 up top, and then 2 minus a -1. Remember, there's a minus built into the formula. And then, you know, x1 is a -1. So yeah, this is 2 minus -1. So we get 6/3, which is just 2. And then the last one, again, I'm assuming you've already done this and you're just checking your work now. So 2 minus a negative 3, and then on the bottom we're going to have negative 2 minus 1, and so, just overall a negative 5/3. Okay?